All right, and now to COVID. Eric Feigal-Ding is an outspoken epidemiologist. Eric, I hope you don't mind that. Based in Washington, who has really been recently ringing alarm bells about COVID, ringing them again and ringing them even now when a lot of people have forgotten about it. Hi, Eric.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Tell me, I am reading your tweets last week. Scoop, Mother of God, just got this leak, which I want to talk about more, from the CDC insider source. It seems that COVID variants are worse than the CDC has been admitting. The new highly evasive BQ1 and BQ11 subvariants are surging over 11%, but the CDC has not shared it yet. You seem to be saying, first of all, that the Center for Disease Control is covering up information on a COVID surge that is just beginning. Is that fair?
Well, I didn't exactly say covering up. I'll be
That's my
generous
word,
and I'll
my
say they've been
characterization.
they've been very derelict and slow in reacting to the surging variants, because these BQ variants have been like on the radar of scientists for well over a month. Like, we gave them the name Typhon and Cerberus like over a month ago, because we knew these are two of the most highly evasive, immune escaping evasive variants that's been ever tested in the lab. And so we're really worried. And the fact that, the CDC has a standing policy, internal policy of basically breaking out and declaring any variant that's surging above 1%. And the thing is, like, up until like Thursday, the CDC website had nothing about the BQs. It had nothing. And all of a sudden, the next day, it was 11%. It didn't go from like 0 to 11% overnight. And they had to like backfill a whole 3 or 4 weeks that shows it was surging for 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, you didn't use the
And
word cover up to be fair, but you
yeah,
did say,
right. I
I
didn't say
cannot
cover up,
describe.
but it's just been very, very disappointing.
Let me read the
Let's
tweet. I
just
cannot
say
describe just how
that's
mad
the
I am at
most
this
generous thing.
disaster. The CDC seems to be holding on to this data. Can it be true? Why did this data have to leak to me from insider sources? It's so bad. I mean, you do seem to be saying that there is an intention to suppress information there. And again, that's my
I think
characterization.
I can't exactly express intention, but it's an extreme amount of disappointment. And let's just say there's an extreme amount of anger and emotion around what the hell, how the hell did this sneak up on us to go from not over 1%, but to 11% out of completely nothing in the prior weeks, right? And I think that's why the source released it to me, because that person was very, very frustrated of how the hell did we get here. I'm basically told that the CDC last week, when asked, is there any BQ variants, they said no, nothing here to see, nothing on the reports. And then all of a sudden 11%. That doesn't happen just by pure accident, or that doesn't happen if people were competent, right? And this is where the sheer, we know that we're approaching this winter surge. We know there's dozens and dozens of variants out, and we know these two variants are two of the worst. I would say these are, of all of them, they're number 2 and number 3 of the all-time worst variants in terms of evasiveness. And we have been completely dropping the ball, and that's what's so frustrating.
Okay, let's get past the CDC process, which I think you already have, and talk about what should the CDC be doing, and which is obviously telling people as quickly and as openly as possible about this. And what result are you looking for out of that? I mean, you're saying that these variants are worse than any of the other ones that we've seen. And then what does that mean? Does that mean we're heading back to lockdowns and people dying in hospitals?
I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, first of all, these are so evasive that monoclonal antibody drugs, just according to lab studies, do not work against them. Even the FDA has warned that some of the monoclonal antibodies aren't working against these variants anymore, because these monoclonal antibodies were designed many, many years ago, a long time ago. And also for vaccines, it means that you need the new BA5 bivalent. Now, the BA.5 bivalent is commonly available in the US, and in Canada, they have both the BA.1 bivalent and the BA.5 bivalent, because the BQ1 and BQ11s are subtypes of BA.5. And the lab studies showed that they're still sufficiently good, I think. But the BA.5 bivalent is not available in the UK, if I understand
Tell me,
correctly.
what did I? And I hate to interrupt you, but you run through a lot of information really quickly because you know this stuff so well. And for us dummies, you got to slow down a little bit. So on October the 6th, just 2 weeks ago now, less than that, I got a booster here in London called Spikevax, Moderna Biotech, Spain. Is that the booster I'm supposed to be getting?
So the Moderna and Pfizer both make the original, the BA.1 and the BA.5. The UK, to my understanding, gives out the BA.1 bivalent. It's an older bivalent. So it's an Omicron, but it's an older Omicron that's now extinct. The BA.1 does not exist anymore.
I thought this was a newer booster.
Yes. The UK does not have the newest. The BA.1 is a newer, but not the newest. And the issue is that there was a debate earlier this summer of we had done a lot of trials on the BA.1 booster shot. So should we roll it out? It looked very good in human trials. Should we roll it out? Or should we update it for the BA.5 and then roll it out? UK decided to go ahead and roll out the BA.1. And UK rolled it out ahead of the US. But US decided to wait another month and roll out the BA.5 variant booster, which is the more dominant, common worldwide strain that's not extinct. BA.1 is already extinct, and Fauci and others had made a tough decision, say, no, let's just hold off for one more month and develop the BA.5 booster.
So what does my booster do for me?
So this is the open question. BA.1 is a more older variant, not the oldest. It's not the oldest Wuhan. I'm not telling people not to get it because I think getting that is better than, not getting a booster at all. But I think the UK government needs to recognize that you need to give out the BA.5. Like Germany is now starting to roll out the BA.5 soon, I believe. Canada is as well. US has been exclusively offering the BA.5. US is also offering the BA.5 bivalent to children now 5 and up. So children now can get that booster 5 years and up. But in the UK, I understand that's still not available, not to mention boosters for kids. So I think UK is very behind the ball right now compared to many other countries. And BQs are subtypes of BA.5 branch. So you need the BA.5 to be adequately protected, I believe.
Now you tell me. Supposed to be interviewing you more often so I don't get needles.
Well, if you put me in charge of UK vaccine response, I can, shake up a few things here and there, but I can only do so much.
So here we are. I mean, this podcast talks to a lot of people all over the world. So there are different vaccines that are out there, some of them older, some of them newer. But here we are, like that was the 4th needle I've had in my arm now, right? Because I had the vaccine, the first, the second, the booster, another booster, and now it looks like the booster I got isn't going to do much compared to the newer booster.
Well, it's going to protect you more. It will definitely protect you more. I mean, so definitely more. It's still in the Omicron
like, how many
family.
needles am I supposed to get? And people don't want to keep taking vaccines.
Well, first of all, flu shot. You're supposed to get a flu shot every year, and that's completely normal. Look, an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. Don't say, oh, how many needles? Like, oh, why do I have to brush my teeth all the time? I just want to brush my teeth once and not have to do it again, right? No, that's not. It's a method of prevention. Oh, why do I have to exercise again? I just exercised last month.
Yeah, but this is putting something alien in my body, which I'm told is safe.
It's safe. And plus, by the way, you take pop multivitamins. You can say that popping multivitamins is alien. Like if you want to make it scary sounding, you can, but it's not. It's not inherent.
No, I mean, I don't mean to because I do take the vaccines, and
and then there's
taking vaccines.
Antibiotics. All these ibuprofen, acetaminophen, paracetamol. Like all these are foreign. These are drugs, and inherently they're not always bad. And vaccines have been well tested. Flu vaccine, by the way, some people say that the new vaccine wasn't tested enough. There's this 8 mice rumor that's roaming around. The Omicron bivalent vaccines have been tested in thousands of people. It has been tested in thousands of people, and including the one that you just took. So I think that is a very ridiculous claim, and it's the same update method as the flu. We see with variants are circulating with the flu each year. We update it and we roll it out to hundreds of millions of people. And again, children get shots. Children get booster shots. Tetanus, you have to get it once every 10 years, depending on the country. So
Right.
these are completely normal. People shouldn't see it as like some again. And hopefully we're developing nasal vaccines that will be much more effective against infection onset, versus just the muscular vaccines that we are getting now. So that's on the horizon, and I think I have a lot of hope for these nasal vaccines. Um, so I'm thinking like we're probably at halftime in terms of this pandemic. We have the initial, defense set up, but to truly win the game again, win this pandemic and stop it, we can't let up now. Because if
Okay,
you let
it's
up
so
right
important what
before
you're
the
saying.
race is over, you're going to lose.
It's so important what you're saying because a lot of people think it's kind of done. And you're saying we're at halftime. So what is the risk if we don't stay on top of it in the second half?
Well, the risk is that as you get infected more and more, you have a higher and higher risk of adverse events of long COVID. That's just published recently in the latest studies. The more infections, your symptoms of cardiovascular risk, your cognitive decline, it's higher with each additional infection that you have, that you recover from. And that's not something you want. You don't want to bioaccumulate more infections. Like infection upon infection is not a thing you want. But at this rate, in which we let the virus spread to hundreds of millions and billions of people, the virus will evolve more variants. And if you don't stop the transmission, if you just say, "Oh, we're stopping hospitalization," which by the way, UK hospitalizations are pretty damn high right now, and hospitals are NHS is pretty overloaded, and so is Germany, by the way. And Germany's ICU is like a 90% capacity as well. Just saying, "Oh, we just need to keep our hospitalizations down and deaths down," that is not a method of prevention whatsoever. Like, just because hospitals are not full, which they are actually right now, you don't say, "Oh, today drunken driving is okay. Today you don't need to wear a seatbelt. Today you don't need to wear a bike helmet." No, that's not how it works. You want to
Right.
stop the onset of it in the first place. And unlike these seatbelt, bike helmet examples, if the more you let it transmit a virus is different, because the more you let it transmit, the more it's going to evolve variants that will evade, and then it's this arms race. You're going to further fall back on this arms race and then get infected more. The end of the pandemic is to reduce infections and transmission. And that's why combination of masks, which I know a lot of people don't want to wear it, but ventilation, air disinfection. Ventilation, air disinfection should be completely apolitical, right? It's not, you're not putting anything in your body, you're not putting something on your face. It is simply fresh air and disinfect and filter the air. It is not that hard. It is not that politically loaded. It is not behaviorally onerous in any way. It should be the cornerstone, yet we do not invest in these. But just like we should invest in the bike helmets and bike lanes and other, safety precautions that we have in everyday life, we somehow just, this thing is way too inconvenient. If it's too inconvenient, we're just gonna have to like live with it. And living with COVID is really, really a horrible idea for society.
Last question to you. What kind of winter do you think is looming out there? Just not for the US, but for Europe and elsewhere,
I
when
think
you look
I
at
think it's a
how
bad
these
winter
variants are?
because it's not just COVID. We're gonna get a double or triple whammy of COVID plus really bad flu plus RSV, as well as there's a new enterovirus going around as well. So I think it's going to be pretty bad because we know the flu season was really bad in Australia. The peak was much higher than ever recorded. It's also starting in Europe and North America much earlier than normal season. Normally, the flu season is December, late November, December. It's already at the same December level already now in October, and so that's what worries me. What the winter will bring. Um, I think it's going to be
Lockdowns?
it's going to be a confluence of all these different things together. That's going to bring a really tough winter, and I think healthcare worker burnouts and shortages is only going to further exacerbate waiting times and clinical care.
D- Governments won't do lockdowns. We won't go back to what the
I
last
don't
winter was.
think they're going to do lockdowns. Well, there's before you do lockdowns, lockdowns is like the last resort in which you shouldn't get there. If you have other mitigations in place, you don't need to do lockdowns. And you shouldn't have to. You should not have to do them if you do all these other mitigations, right? Like mental ventilation, air disinfection, masks, premium masks. And vaccines. Obviously, vaccines alone is not going to stop a transmission given all the variants. But if you multi-layer them together and do testing, contact tracing, you can stop the transmission off. But we're not doing them anymore. UK has stopped giving out free testing, right? Quarantine isolation, I believe, is kind of like a joke now. We do not have masks in schools in many places still. And
No, my kids
ventilation, air
don't have masks. They
disinfection
don't have.
is a very privileged thing. Only if some principal, teachers, or parents are very aggressive in getting them installed in your local schools. But otherwise, most schools don't have ventilation, air disinfection.
A lot of
It's
people
very
think
sad.
because the vaccines have been given out that that's it, and that they don't need to pay much attention to this anymore.
Yeah, I feel like people have a very short attention span. People hope that it's this inconvenient thing, just do the bare minimum and move on. This is how we kind of ignored climate change. Climate change is a clear and present danger. Oh, but it's in 50 years. Oh, it's in 100 years. Oh, it's not my current problem right now. And let's just sweep it under the rug. People too often have a sweep it under the rug attitude, and governments and leaders have a let's just show people that we're doing some stuff until the next election. We just need give perception that we're winning this COVID fight until the next election. And I think that's a very dishonest, disingenuous way of leading society.
Eric Feigal-Ding, always great to talk to you, Eric. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Dana. Take care.